Friends, today I am going to tell you about Greek philosopher Socrates. Because Socrates, Plato and Aristotle, these are the three names which have ruled many theories in philosophy, many political theories also, and they are still influencing the human race. Regarding Socrates, I was very eager to visit Greece because from my childhood I used to see a magazine published from Chennai called Chandoba, and this Chandoba magazine was translated in many languages, similarly in Marathi also. The beautiful sketches in the Chandoba used to create a great attraction among the small children, and I was one of them. I used to read with full interest the Himtiaibati, Helen of Troy, and such things from Greek mythology. And that was one thing from my childhood Greek culture I was attracted. Second, when I became a student of philosophy, I had a great attraction about Socrates, Plato, not to the Aristotle, but these two things. Because Plato has depicted what Socrates was and what was his philosophy. Usually very little known is about Socrates. Unfortunately, he was an Athenian with moderate means, and he used to teach philosophy to young students, not for money like sophist. He went from street to street, bazaar to bazaar, and he used to tell them what is happening in society, and with a dialogue method he used to come to right conclusion. He was abused by the so-called democratic people, and he was executed, he was condemned, executed, and in 399 before Christ. He was 70 years old that time. Two of his pupils, Xenophon and Plato, they wrote about him voluminously, and especially Plato's Republic, Plato's Apology, that is very interesting. In Apology, Plato has put the last speech of Socrates in defense before the trial. And in another book, Plato has depicted all the slaves confined in cave, and one slave comes out of it and sees the natural beauty, and then again goes back and tells his fellow brothers, come on, there is another world, come up and see the real world. And unfortunately other slaves beat him till death, and that was a symbolic thing for Socrates. But after Socrates was executed, a wave of repentance came all over Greece, and they realized their mistake. But during Socrates' life, early days were spent in army. He was a brave soldier. He saved the life of his leader also, and he was once a jury, and he gave very truthful verdict about there were few army generals, and against them a case was being fought. That time, as a judge, Socrates has given very impartial judgment, and that also became a point of anger for some other people. And main blame on Socrates was he is spoiling the youths of Athens against existing political party. And Socrates used to tell them, in the name of democracy, when few dictators rule the country, they exploit ordinary people. And Socrates used to make people aware. If somebody asks him or states that injustice is done to me, then he will ask a counter question. Then what is justice? Similarly, with the method of dialogue, he will come to right conclusion, and the man is convinced and he knows what is justice. Once it happened that one morning he was thinking to solve about a problem, and he was thinking something different than regular mundane problems. But he stood. He could not resolve the problem, so he was standing continuously from early dawn to evening. People flock. What is he doing? What he is thinking? Whether he is standing right or he is living. They did realize that till next morning he was standing in the same position. And when the problem was resolved, thinking problem, he offered prayer to sun god, and then he went on his duty. There is a Delphi god. I went to that place also. And Athenians used to pray there and they used to get the answer. So some people went to Delphi god and asked them whether is there any wiser man than Socrates. God said nobody. And this was conveyed to Socrates. But Socrates was puzzled by this answer because he knew how ignorant he is. And another mind says, Socrates says, कि Delphi God will not lie. But the fact is, I am ignorant of many things. But only his stress was, live ethically, don't exploit anybody. He had a very small things, and his mother was a maid nurse, and she used to try to make delivery of women painless and very saving their life. Socrates, when he was grown up, he used to say, I have continued my mother's business. I try to bring out thoughts, delivery of thoughts from your mind and soul safely. And he always used to say, that thinking is a process which is very painful. So ordinary people try to avoid it and believe in something and continue their lifestyle. But this is very dangerous, he used to say. And Socrates, when he was condemned to death, hemlock was a herbal poison which used to be administered that time. And because of some religious function in Athens, his death sentence was postponed. And after 21 days, a day comes when he was to be executed. That time Socrates, the iron shackles were removed from his feet, and Socrates, with very laughing face, tells his disciples, pupils, look now, few moments back ago, there was a lot of pain in my leg, but as the shackles are removed, I am experiencing pleasure. Usually, ordinary people want pleasure and pain separately, but he says it never comes like that. One is followed by the another. So remember, pleasure and pain, they are followed by each other. They are not at all separate. We cannot do separation. Then he talks about death. What is death? What is life after death? Socrates comments. Then he takes bath, because usually in Athens, women after death, the body is to be washed by women. He says, I don't want to trouble women. When his wife and 2 children were weeping because that was his last day, he tells them to go to house because they need not cry over it. And the last moment, even the jailer tells Socrates, Socrates, we have never seen a man like you, courageous, a thinker and truthful man, ethical man, moral man, and we are very sorry to give you hemlock. But Socrates says, you are a gentleman, you have never given me any sort of a trouble, and bring the glass of hemlock. The jailer says, there are still some time and you need not worry about it. Then Socrates asked him, what is the procedure? How does it affect the physical body? Then the jailer explains, it is affected from your feet to your head, and gradually your feet will be benumbed, then lie down on the couch in the hall, and gradually it will come to your brain and death will come to you. When it was being having effect on his body, suddenly Socrates removes bedsheet on his face and tells his Crito, will you do one thing for me? Crito says, yes, tell me. He says, I had hired a bird from neighbor and I have forgotten to repay it. Will you kindly repay it? And next moment he leaves the body. So this was Socrates. Till death he was honest. Till death he was truthful. Even Mahatma Gandhi used to say, Gandhi wrote in his magazine, The Story of a Soldier of Truth, and that was about Socrates. And Gandhiji confessed that the inspiration of Satyagraha, I have taken it from Socrates. Such a great man, Socrates, and we still remember. And I had a good opportunity in 2014 to attend a World Philosophical Congress in Athens, and during that time I was able to attend many seminars about Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. I visited the place of Lyceum of Aristotle, Plato's Academy, and Socrates' prison, and where he used to move and used to have many dialogues. And I was very satisfied. When I returned back, I wrote a book on Socrates, and that was well received by people. This is my book on Socrates. This is actually a painting of a Greek painter, last day of Socrates. And do remember Socrates, do read Socrates, who will inspire you to be very truthful, honest, ethical in life, in your individual life and also nation's life, because that is a need of time. Thank you.